Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here today because I'm excited to serve a God that loves me. You know, wouldn't it be horrible to wake up and there be a God who every now and then wakes up on the wrong side of the bed and he's a little grumpy, throws down a lightning bolt every now and then, throws a bulldozer in front of you while you're going down the interstate every now and then? It would be horrible to have a God like that. But to have a God that is teetotally, 100% committed to you is the kind of God that makes life worth living. We're going to talk about that this morning, because if you can understand the love of God, if you can really wrap your mind around it, you can understand why you can have perfect peace and a hope that will not let you down. We're going to talk about that this morning in the first paragraph of Romans chapter 5. We're about to look at a man who struggled with the struggles of life. Like was mentioned earlier by Furl, we're not going to escape the troubles that we have in life. They're here, but what can sustain your hope? What can keep you going in those kind of times? Here's a man who struggled to see that as well.
Like most kids, I learned about Easter at Sunday school. Although it was never very tangible to me,
A little technical difficulty. Patience, please. Is it going to work, Tom? You think? Maybe?
like most kids, I learned about Easter at Sunday school. Although it was never very tangible to me, I guess I kind of put it in the same category as my grandfather's old war stories. I knew they happened, but their existence to me personally lived only on paper or old movies. It never seemed quite real. As I got to my teens, I considered myself a Christian. And every year when Easter rolled around, we'd gather the family together and
Little struggle there. Excuse me. Not going to work?
like most kids, I learned about Easter at Sunday school.
Just let it play.
Although it was never very tangible to me, I guess I kind of put it in the same category as my grandfather's old war stories. I knew they happened, but their existence to me personally lived only on paper or old movies. It never seemed quite real. As I got to my teens, I considered myself a Christian. And every year when Easter rolled around, we'd gather the family together and go see the church's Easter production. But that's as deep as it ever got. Getting older, there comes a point when life just hits the on switch. I remember this happening pretty quickly right out of college. And getting married young was a hard thing to do. Of course, I love my wife, but there were some struggles. Those struggles grew into frustrations. Eventually, those frustrations grew into disappointments. It was tough. And having an unplanned child didn't make it easier. I started to experience anxieties that I never knew existed. Add in the mortgage, taxes, 2 car payments. I just didn't have time to feel insecure anymore. The weight of life has been unbearable at times. The pull from temptations just gets stronger and stronger. I might look composed, but the truth is, I'm afraid. I'm alone. I feel as though I'm the only one out there with these kind of issues. I mean, most Christians I know, they seem to have it all together. Why can't I? But here's the amazing thing about Easter. Christ's crucifixion and resurrection is everything I need. The absolute beauty in it is its simplicity. His acts weren't a spectacle. They were sacrifice. A sacrifice for me. Easter is not just a holiday. It's a celebration of the life-changing power that exists because of God and His love for us. Purpose, freedom, peace, joy, hope. All these things Jesus intended for me when He made that sacrifice on the cross. All my failures, my anxieties, my sins and insecurities, they're all laid to rest. Christ's actions not only saved me, they completed me. He died for me. And He rose for me.
I wished you could have seen that video and saw the various effects that were going on in it. I don't know what happened. We'll try to figure it out later. This man was struggling with life like we always struggle. He didn't have any peace. He didn't have any hope. But the thing that finally gave him balance in life was coming to understand what happened at the cross, that somebody had delivered him, that in spite of the struggles he had in this world, he knew, I have been redeemed. I've been bought back by the blood of God, and because of that, I have hope, and I can go on and have peace. And that's what we're going to try to learn this morning. Now, if you remember last week, in the last few weeks since we started Romans, we saw the thesis of the book of Romans, the one righteous by faith. That's the one who's going to live. And that's opposed to the one who is righteous by doing it all right, by works of law. In other words, achieving, he's going to die. He's going to be cursed. And the reason he'll be cursed is we all failed at living righteously. We were incapable of earning righteousness. Having failed one time, now we have the bill, and the bill is death. And so we learned also the righteousness which comes from God has no connection to anything that you and I do. It is merely a gift given to us so that we can now walk and stand with peace and hope, knowing that we've been made righteous by God. And then we saw last week that since God righteousized us, since the reason why we're righteous is not what we do, but He gave it to us, we have nothing to boast about. And in fact, the entire chapter 4 illustrated that with Abraham and David, who were examples of men who had nothing to boast about, since they too were made righteous by God, not by their own works. They simply put their trust in God that He would make them righteous. Now, having said that, here's a review of what we saw last week. What then shall we say that Abraham, our forefather according to the flesh, has found? For if Abraham was justified by works, he has something to boast about, but not before God. For what does the Scripture say?